The only reason we know the true story of these two early Christian martyrs is because of the man who murdered them. The Roman executioner who took their lives was so shattered by what he witnessed in their final moments that he dropped his weapon, repented of his actions, and eventually asked to be baptized into the very faith he was hired to destroy. Years later, this repentant killer recounted every detail of the execution to a young Christian boy named Damasus. That boy would eventually grow up to become the Pope. Decades later, Pope Damasus wanted to ensure the executioner's eyewitness account survived the passage of time. He composed a poem detailing the martyrdom and had it permanently carved into marble directly over the saint's tomb. Before any reported healings or visions, the blood of these martyrs claimed its first soul, the very man who took their lives. In the year 304, Emperor Diocletian launched the Great Persecution, a violent, empire-wide campaign designed to eradicate Christianity by explicitly targeting its clergy. Caught in this dragnet were two Roman clergymen, Marcellinus, a faithful priest, and Peter, an exorcist. Both men were arrested, stripped of their legal rights, and thrown into a miserable, dark holding cell. But instead of breaking their spirits, the Roman prison simply provided them with a captive audience. Marcellinus and Peter immediately began preaching to their fellow inmates, effectively turning their cell into a thriving underground church. Peter even continued to exercise his specific office. The jailer, a man named Artemius, had a daughter named Paulina who was tormented by a demon. From inside the prison, Peter called upon the name of Christ and delivered the girl from her affliction. Witnessing this absolute power over darkness, Artemius was convinced. He, his wife, and their entire household were converted and baptized right there among the prisoners. Rome had locked these men away to silence them, but human chains and physical darkness proved utterly powerless to contain the contagious light of Christ. When the Roman magistrate learned that his prisoners were actively expanding the church from their cells, he was enraged. He ordered an immediate, highly secretive execution to ensure no Christian would ever find their bodies or venerate their memory. Marcellinus and Peter were marched miles outside the city walls, to a remote, deeply overgrown thicket known to the Romans as the Silva Nigra, the Black Wood. Arriving at the desolate spot, the executioner handed down a particularly cruel final command. The condemned men were ordered to clear the thorny brambles themselves and dig their own graves. The executioner expected tears or begging, but instead Marcellinus and Peter began clearing the thorns with their own hands. They hacked through the thicket and turned the soil with a visible, confounding eagerness, digging their own graves with the same energy a man might use to build a home. There, in the graves they had cheerfully prepared, their necks were severed by the sword, and their bodies were left hidden among the brambles. Watching two men labor with absolute joy in the final moments of their own lives confounded the executioner. That specific memory of their unshakable peace was the wedge that forever broke his hardened heart. The Roman Empire's meticulously designed plan to inflict eternal anonymity on these men sailed almost instantly. Two holy women, Lucilla and Firmina, experienced a divine revelation that explicitly guided them to the hidden location in the thicket. The women carefully recovered the martyrs and relocated them to a catacomb for an honorable burial. Because of their discovery, the surrounding area was forever renamed. The Black Wood became the Silva Candida, the White Wood. The early Christian writer Tertullian famously noted that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. Rome tried to bury Marcellinus and Peter in the dirt, but they only succeeded in planting them. Today, their legacy is as permanent as the church itself. The names Marcellinus and Peter are still spoken aloud during the Roman canon of the Mass, anchoring them in daily liturgy worldwide. Following the legalization of Christianity, Emperor Constantine the Great ordered the construction of a massive funerary basilica directly over the catacombs where the two martyrs rested. He then offered the ultimate imperial tribute. Constantine chose this exact sacred ground to serve as the final resting place for his own mother, Saint Helena, laying her in a majestic porphyry sarcophagus. In less than a single generation, the two humble clergymen that Rome tried to erase in a forgotten thicket were now being publicly venerated by the most powerful family on earth. Their influence soon expanded far beyond the Italian peninsula. In the 9th century, the relics of Marcellinus and Peter were carried out of Rome, across the Alps, and into Germany. When the sacred remains finally arrived at the Benedictine monastery of Seligenstadt, contemporary accounts recorded a sudden, massive flood of physical miracles. The chroniclers documented specific, astonishing cures at the shrine. The blind regained their sight, the deaf could hear, the mute spoke, and the paralyzed stood up and walked. The records also recount the dramatic exorcism of a vicious demon named Wigo, who shrieked that he was forced to flee the region simply because he had been brought near the overwhelming power of the saints. The exorcist who cast out a demon in a 4th century Roman prison was still successfully casting out demons 5 centuries later in a German basilica. Marcellinus and Peter occupy a living place in the communion of saints, serving as active intercessors for those facing their own moments of hardship. Their story survives because the man paid to slaughter them was shattered by the grace he witnessed. His conversion stands as a testament that even a hardened heart can find the path to baptism and mercy. When you face your own moments of darkness, do not hesitate to ask Saints Marcellinus and Peter for their intercession. Pray for their steadfast faith, their courage, and their unconquerable joy.